if you have struggled through the TUI MPL selection assessments, I want to share some things with you that may help you, especially if you put them to use. When it comes to those types of assessments, the logical reasoning, verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning tests, and of course the math test, understand that those tests sometimes, I mean, there's so many of them, right? Those tests generally are testing for your abilities, your understanding of things and patterns, and your ability to maybe spot things and make necessary inputs that are correct. A lot of times, most people are going through this assessment for the first time. And I think if you're going through this assessment for the first time, you are likely going to struggle because it's not something that you have maybe experienced before, you have practiced before. Now, understand that there's no website that is perfect. But one thing I would say is that these platforms, including the ones that are freely available, or even the ones that are suggested by the airline for practice, often give you something that isn't identical to what you would take on the actual test. So the focus for you should be your exposure to various tests, various assessments from various sources. And when you are able to build an understanding of how those tests are conducted and what they are looking for, you are likely to do well in the future. Now, for the math test, what I would say is, again, it's similar to what I said in the previous video where I mentioned, practice is really what you need for that. And exposure to various types of questions is what will give you the upper hand. Practicing GCSE math level, but at the same time, there's much more detail on the time pressure to perform on the actual selection. And this is why cadet programs can be quite difficult to crack, because things will change every time. Even if you've gone through the process in the previous year, this time around might be slightly different. Although, from what I'm gathering, it's probably still remains mostly the same. Now, the other area that I've seen a lot of people question is, even though they've scored, let's say, above average on 2 sections and they have maybe average on one of the sections, they still didn't get through. And I'll be honest with you, I do not know exactly what the selection requirements are. And yes, of course, maybe you want to get above average on everything. Maybe that should be your goal. But at the end of it all, does that make you less competent or less of a person? I don't think so. That is not a goal. And that is why I don't want you to be disappointed about the outcome. Yes, you can be disappointed, but you don't want to take it too hard to let it affect your ability to pursue your dreams. Cadet programs are very, I would say, unique in their own way, because every airline do focus more on certain skills or traits or abilities over the other. And your traits that what makes you unique, can sometimes not match with a particular airline. So what does that mean? That means that you should be able to spend some time to find an airline that you are passionate about, of course, but also that you are willing to do what it takes to get through. And that means maybe that studying, practicing, reading about the airline, understanding the operation of the airline, and being able to connect your own unique skills to the airline. That would make you stand out during your selection processes. And of course, you do your own part by studying. I mean, like I said, the best thing you can always do with all these programs is experience. The more experience you gather when it comes to taking these assessments, when it comes to interviewing, when it comes to doing any of those selection tests that you have to take, experience does help. And when you have a lot of experience, you're likely to perform well. So don't be discouraged by the outcome if you have not gone through to the next stages. Don't be disappointed at all. Another area that I've gotten a lot of questions or requests from people that are trying to apply to the program is the area of the ability to work in the UK or apply to the program at all. And that's the one I've alerted in one of the requirements right there. The key thing that I want you to keep in mind is, as you look through the selection, the eligibility requirements, pay attention to this part. All right, for those that are thinking of applying to the program, that are planning to apply, that are trying to apply, if you do not have this requirement, which is very important for those that have asked me this question, if you do not have the ability to work in the UK, yes, if you were born in the UK or you have some form of legal rights to the UK, then of course you can most likely apply. But if you need to get a visa and you have to go through the whole embassy process, then you're likely not going to meet this requirement. That is really how that works. Okay, now I'm not an immigration expert, so I always tell you guys to do your own research, but understand that this is one, don't waste your time. That's what I'm trying to say. If you do not have this, or if you think you do not have this, then most likely you don't. That is the short answer to that. The next thing I'll say is that for those of you that might have made it through the digital interview stages, or at least completed those digital interview assessments, then of course you want to start preparing for this stage. There's a ton of resources online. I'm not going to mention any at this point, but the point here is those assessments are quite difficult. Okay. This is where you do some of the interviews. This is where you do some of those in-person assessments as well. For those that might have gone through this last year, I'm sure you guys have some experience with that. But one thing I would say is that, again, being familiar with your interview tips that I share on this channel, those interview tips does help. Using the STAR concept does help. Being familiar with, how the airline operates, okay, knowing about the airline, the business model, and of course, how to actually present yourself during an interview. Those things are what you should be preparing for, especially if you think you've done really well during the digital interview process, and you feel like you have a chance based on how you performed. Then I think you shouldn't waste any time preparing for the stages. Now, I remember the previous process, they generally would send out some information to you, closer to the dates on what to prepare for, and generally speaking, it will change from time to time. So preparing for that is not what I would recommend. But what you can prepare for is knowing about the airline, preparing for your interviews, being confident about your experiences, and being able to share those pilot competency experience, those skills, okay, pilot competencies that I talk about, your ability to tie them to your previous experiences and showcase them during the selection process will go a long way. And of course, group interviews as well, group exercises, that's what it's called. You should be familiar with some of the things that you can do to help you stand out. Now, I think I'll make more videos in the future about that, but I've made videos, like I said, in the past about this program, so you can check them out. I think I'll link them below. You can check them out just from the previous one. Remember, things can change, so don't be married to that information, but it will help you to kind of get a head start on how to start preparing for the next stages. Like I said, this is where you actually have a lot of work to do. This particular stage is somewhat straightforward. The best thing you can do for that is using a flight simulator if you can, getting familiar with like a 737 instrumentation, and of course knowing how to climb, descend, turns, and just do some of those basic maneuvers. I think that would help you in preparing for that stage. But the next big hurdle is this part, so pay attention to that area. Any information that you can get that would help you prepare for that stage is what you should be doing now. Spend the time that you have between now and when the outcome of a digital interview is out. Spend the time to prepare for that stage. I just wanted to touch base with most of you again and just wish you best of luck. For those of you that might have struggled to get through, don't be discouraged. Remember, there are many other programs that will open up again, and keep your dreams alive. That's really the key thing. Okay, keep your dreams alive. I'll see you in the next one.